So I'm here today to talk about the impact of COVID on clinical trials from the patient caregiver perspective. My daughter Tessa is now 18, so I'm going to try to give the 1-minute synopsis of the past 18 years. We thought we were having a healthy baby girl, but when Tessa was just 1 day old, she began seizing uncontrollably. We watched her diagnosis shift from benign idiopathic epilepsy to catastrophic epilepsy. Tessa was having hundreds of seizures a day. Her development was significantly impaired, and we spent a decade trying to figure out what was causing her seizures. We could see her seizures on an EEG, but all other tests kept coming back normal. We tried all traditional and many creative seizure treatments, but we just could not stop her seizures. Brenda Porter, our neurologist at Stanford, suggested we enroll in the Epidiolex trial at UCSF. This was our first formal clinical trial experience, and unfortunately for us, Epidiolex did not work for Tessa. We were grateful that she did not have any significant side effects, but we were, of course, disappointed that it didn't help with her seizures. We stayed in the trial until the end because we knew this was our opportunity to try this drug. And the drug did help patients in the trial, which is fantastic. Epidiolex is now an FDA-approved medication. It just didn't work for us. Fast forward to when Tessa was 9 years old and I gave birth to my fourth baby, a little boy who we named Colton. Just like his big sister, Colton seemed healthy at birth. And just like his big sister, Colton started having seizures right after birth. Hope was hard to find because I already knew what this disease looked like. I knew that my 1-day-old baby would likely never talk or live independently. I knew he had a life filled with doctor's appointments and ambulance trips. However, from a medical standpoint, the puzzle suddenly got a lot easier. A genetic researcher named Matthew Bainbridge was able to find a typo in Tessa and Colton's genetic code. This typo was on the gene SLC13A5. We finally knew what had robbed Tessa of her childhood and what was dashing Colton's future, SLC13A5 citrate transporter disorder. Babies with the disorder begin seizing shortly after birth and go on to have significant movement disorder and minimal speech. The seizures often remain very hard to control through childhood, and we know that some children have died from seizure complications. This is a severe and life-threatening genetic epilepsy with recessive inheritance. Our patient community is eager for clinical trials of medications that not only help with symptomatic relief, but also address the underlying cause of the disease. Once we had a diagnosis, Brenda Porter and Matthew Bainbridge immediately started thinking about potential treatments for the underlying problem. Ultragenyx had a medication called triheptanoin that Brenda and Matthew thought could be hugely helpful for people with SLC13A5 epilepsy. Triheptanoin was not an FDA-approved drug for this disease, but a compassionate care use trial would allow our patient population to try the drug. I am really grateful to Ultragenyx, the FDA, and our medical team for working together to get a small trial of this medication off the ground. Unfortunately, this trial also did not improve my kids' seizures or development. Because this was our first precision medicine trial, it felt extra crushing when neither of my kids showed improvements. But we're not giving up on clinical trials. Taysha Gene Therapies has a gene replacement therapy for SLC13A5 deficiency, which we expect to be in clinical trials this year. So now to the question of COVID's impact on clinical trials. I'm just going to raise 3 points. 1, we learned more about how families make medical decisions. 2, science became politicized and questioned. And 3, telehealth became more mainstream. However, my perspective is that not too much has changed in terms of how families make decisions about whether to enroll in a clinical trial. Parents still look to their doctor and the healthcare team they trust in order to make these decisions. They ask other families in their community who have trial experience. And families assess risks versus benefits of a treatment. Some trials may involve a lot of risks and some trials may have minimal risks. Some trials may involve frequent trips to clinics and may involve treatments that could be uncomfortable, such as drugs given by a spinal injection. Some may involve long periods where you may not know if the subject, your child or yourself, is taking a placebo or receiving the drug. Some may involve significant risk or may be associated with unknown risk likelihood because they are very new. And some trials might have an impact on things other than seizures. They may provide impact on the disease itself. Families still need to assess the trial design and the impact on their daily life. So many quality of life topics come into play with clinical trials. In my mind, there's this huge laundry list of things that come to mind when considering a clinical trial. Things like travel support and reimbursement, days off work and caring for other children, titration or route of administration, trial duration, journaling, telehealth versus clinic visits, wearables, counting seizures, having to hold off on other changes to medications or interventions or surgeries. Even things like whether you enroll during the school year versus summer vacation, and also tracking secondary measures such as appetite, sleep, and motor control, balance, behavior, cognition. The list is really endless. Cures start with clinical trials. There is true hope in them, but they are also a heavy lift for families, and often they fail, as they have for my family. Every family needs to assess for themselves what is right for their child and for their family. I think COVID has highlighted that we have to have some faith in science in order to enroll in a trial, but it has not changed the need or the overall decision-making process for families. Thank you.